We don't have a ton of crossover in our taste in games, but I regularly watch videos from Mortismal Gaming. He regularly makes videos that get me thinking. 5 games that did or didn't age well. Canceled games I wish I had released. 5 games that shouldn't get a sequel. And that is without mentioning his review of games after he completes them with 100%. Reviewers, like myself, give less than reviews and more first takes while labeling their videos or articles as reviews. Mortem talks about games in a near complete manner that you do not see from other reviewers. When I was reminiscing on some of my favorite games, all but just a couple of them were ones from my childhood, not from my recency. My love of gaming was reignited once I started streaming, and I have to give a huge credit to my wife for gifting me my PC in 2021. It not only got me heavy into gaming again, but was also the birth of my Twitch and YouTube channels. What Mortem got me thinking about is the games that have been my favorites since beginning that journey. So what I decided to do is rank my 20 favorites that I've played since. And no, this is not a list of my favorite releases of those years. I may plan to do that for another day. These are the 20 best games that I've played since January 2022. I tend to record my own B-roll for the footage, but with me covering 20 games, I decided to give myself a little break and just use clips from the game's trailer. And as for the list, is the games that I played first since streaming all the way up to the games that I played most recently. The first game I ever streamed, Later Alligator, is such a great time. It is all that art done by the creators of Batman Spider-Man at Small Boost Animation. It has a fun quote-unquote mystery to solve with multiple endings. The writing is flat out hilarious and works so well with the alligator animation. Watching back my old clips of the game makes me laugh. I said, this is the game for me after reading Joni the Gator had a breakfast of black coffee and half a can of leftover candy cigarettes. Which hits me very much in the feels because I grew up loving candy cigarettes, and anytime I see a pack of them out in the wild, I buy it. It really is such a good game that I got it for my nieces and nephews. Another one that stuck out to me for its addictive nature is Luckitown. Yahtzee holds a special spot for me, as it is one of my in-laws' favorite board games. Luckitown is a dice-based tower defense game, but the enemies and your recruited allies are only moving towards the castle and the enemies after you roll your dice. Buildings you build can produce different kinds of dice that offer new resources that you use for crafting. And Luckitown doesn't have a glossary to sift through to get ideas on what to be going for. You have to learn those things off experience, which I actually like. I have nearly 20 hours into it, with only one single successful run where I beat all 4 seasons of the game. When writing this list, I almost missed out on Vampire Survivors. It was such a big hit for my wife and I during the early days of having my PC. For her specifically, when she would have rough days at work, she would put her headphones on, zone out, and have a few runs. You will hear me talking more about it now that Vampire Crawlers is out, and it uses a lot of the sprites and the music from the original. Chicory, A Colorful Tale, really is a great time through both its gameplay and its story. Story-wise, it explores mental struggles, how to work through it, how to support someone who has it. The use of the paintbrush makes for such a fun tool. You gain abilities that use it, you can paint reminders on the ground, or just add a color to the black and white landscape. It makes for a really wholesome adventure while fighting the monsters that run alongside the characters and in the mind of someone fighting internal struggles. Of the games I was ranking in my all-time 10 months before doing this list, Luck Be a Landlord was one of the only games I listed I started before streaming. It is a slot machine game where you're building the symbols that you use to make in-game money on this slot machine. It is essentially a roguelite deck builder, but without combat, and only trying to make the numbers go up. I wanted to do a tier list based on my best symbols back at the end of 2023, but as I played more, symbols I have thought of low tier back then have led me to successful execution runs. If you have played the game long enough, you understand what an execution run is. Besides being a fun, addictive game, Luckitown Landlord is the game that broke my addiction of doom scrolling on social media. I already loved the game, but when it went to mobile, there was no need for me to see what people I hadn't seen in half a decade were up to. It is also a much better game to be addicted to than the financial risks associated with a legitimate casino. A lot of people point to Death's Door as their preferred favorite of the two top-down action games, but while I think Death's Door has a more engaging story, Tunic's puzzles are some of the best, maybe ever. Easily my favorite of the two. The big gimmick of the game is what makes me love it so much, the manual. I grew up reading and loving manuals for games on consoles and handhelds, but through Tunic, the answers that would be in its manual are hidden through missing pages in the game's other language. Things that are available from the get-go of the game are hidden to you in those gaps in translation and pages being missing. It has been a long time since a single-player game has caused me to pop off as hard as I did when finishing a late-game Tunic puzzle. Luckily, it was on camera on stream while I was streaming. Lil Gator Game is one I never finished playing while on stream, but with the DLC out, I returned to it and to research for a prescription video. After finishing the base game, I had my eyes open to how timeless and heartfelt the story is. It's a perfect game for kids to play and learn new concepts. Plus, it is great for adults to recreate the feelings of being a kid again. I can't wait to get to the In the Dark DLC, especially when players are saying it has the same amount of playtime as the game without the DLC. I will never forget playing this with my friends Kunk and Hector in Kansas City at DomeCon. As a viewer, you don't really get the same feelings that you get when you play because everything is hidden to you, but the tension of things happening to you are unsure where everything makes for such an exciting time for the players when nothing is happening on screen. Literally nothing is going on, but yet there's so much tension in the air. It has a number of characters you can play as, and the maps are different, having things that you naturally interact with, like the security camera tracks you, and footprints in the snow, so it kind of adds to a little bit of deduction of where players could be. I've thought about making a video of games that smash more than two genres together. Patch Quest is the idea for that video. It combines roguelite, creature collection, and Metroidvania into a game, and somehow it just works, and I really don't know how it does it. It just makes for a great experience as you learn the layout of the map, level up creatures that you have captured, and adventure in different areas to make for a fun time. Even the way you capture creatures by circling them like you're tying up their legs is unique and fun. Honestly, Inscryption is the perfect roguelite experience. You have a story that causes changes to the setting you're playing in, it breaks the fourth wall through its gameplay and narrative, and just playing the card game part is really good. It's so addictive and fun, and that is what you want out of a roguelite. The end of the game still shocks me, which is part of why I hold it in such a high regard. Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion. It was such a hit with me because I beat it in a single stream. It's a modern take on a top-down Zelda, and it did so with such good humor. A silent protagonist who commits crimes and ruins the lives of other villagers with a smile on their face is both humorous and sadistic. All in a game you can beat in 3 hours. One of the games that you should play, especially if you grew up playing 2D adventure games. And there's a sequel that's currently out called Turnip Boy Robs a Bank, and one that's currently in the works. Meg's Monster would not have made this list had I not finished it. I like the idea of an unstoppable force, the monster Roy, who is protecting the lost girl in Meg. Roy protects her because if she cries, it will destroy the world. And while I liked it, what set it as one of my favorites was the story. It was very emotional and pulls at the heartstrings so hard you want to cry. The Lost Memories DLC is one that I will be getting to, along with the In the Dark DLC for Lil Gator Game. Power Wash Sim was the first game that helped me realizing the beauty in doing something digitally productive. There's something that oddly feels satisfying to clocking in for a short shift of cleaning things in a game. Maybe it's the idea of doing something in general. After you finish cleaning a mess, you feel good about your hard work. Real life cleaning tends to be stressful as you look at the mess that you have made or may not have. The job to pick it up can be exhausting, messy, and an inhibitor to you enjoying parts of life. Power Wash Sim allows you to have that rewarding feeling and accomplishment without all the negative emotions. And when you're done, you literally can just shut off the game. I mentioned before that you all should play X game, but UFO 50 should be a must-own for any gamer. You hear a collection of 50 games and your mind goes to Action 52. For those uninformed, Action 52 was an NES game that is known for being horrible. This Destructoid quote may be the best way to put it. There's nothing worth playing in the lot. UFO 50 is the literal opposite. Every game of the 50 is worth trying, and that is the beauty of it. To me, it represents the beauty in gaming, where if you ask 10 players what their favorite is from the collection, you probably get close to 10 different answers. The amazing thing about it is it builds on the fictional history of UFO Soft, with talks of the in-game developers' inspirations and characters that are made into a series. If you have a Switch or PC, this is one you cannot pass on. Rivals of Aether 2 is what I call a sequel to Smash Melee, in that Brawl may have had the Nintendo characters, but removed a lot of the advanced tech and potential for depth that Melee had. Rivals 2 does what Melee had and it expands it. A lot of the criticism for it was the limited characters at launch, only having 10. But since its launch in 2024, 6 more characters have been released. I'm quite a bit behind on experiencing new characters, as my GameCube controller broke the week before Galvin came out. And in some ways I'm glad it broke, because now I don't have a controller, I can play more of my backlog. Rivals 2 took all of my gaming free time, but with Galvin, Lorena, and now Slade being out, I kinda wanna play them. I covered Atlyss in my Q3 journal, and recently as a prescription, but really, it gives me that feel of an MMO with fun twists on combat and without having to pay for a monthly membership. It takes me back to playing World of Warcraft, which I did off and on since I was 13, mainly through 1 month free trials. What Atlyss has makes it a little more unique is that when you fire a ranged weapon, you have to aim, and blocking is not done through an RNG chance, but done with right clicking. And if you time it right, you will parry enemies. In the era of gaming I'm in, I no longer need to pay for gaming monthly when games like Atlyss offer a similar feel with a twist and no monthly fees. What makes Peak so memorable isn't just that it is a fantastic time. And yes, the game is fantastic, but the game is made for a group of friends, and that is why the game stands out so much. My friends from high school regularly made time to play Peak throughout last summer. We have so many fun memories, like always reaching out a helping hand when walking, launching the frisbee at each other at inopportune times, and making regularly comments about how bad we were at the game. Peak is so much fun, and I'm glad it was the instigator to taking normal IRL activities and gamifying them with a focus on multiplayer.
Oh, put that lit player in there. Alright, nice. Nice. Oh, it's
still on. What makes Laika's Age Through Blood stand out in my mind is the combination of genres into an emotional game. It combines the 2D motorbike controls from Trial HD with Metroidvania. The game just shines in ways you don't expect. The story touches on some rather dark stuff, and even after the fact, I find myself humming tunes from the game. It does a cool job of leaning into it, having the cassettes from the OST to be hidden around the world and be considered a side part of the story. Honestly, one that just stands out in my mind. The original Hades is one of my favorite games of all time, hitting my overall top 10 the last time I did one. Hades 2 is definitively a better game when one is to compare the two on the content front. It easily has more than doubled than what we saw in the original. Even after its 1.0 release last summer, a new update was just added to the game weeks before I wrote this, focusing on Hypnos. Hades 2 was my pick for the best game of 2025, which is why it's 6th among my top 20 since I started streaming. Supergiant Games has no misses.
It's now or never.
This is my newest entry to the 20. And know if any game stands out in the future, I'll be doing an additional list. Especially since I am playing games released in prior years more with my gaming journal. Cookie Clicker is one that I started playing as research for my next over-the-counter video. I found myself so addicted to it, playing at work while waiting on hold with insurances, in the queues at Universal Orlando, and right before bed as a routine to maximize my quote-unquote productivity of baking cookies. What stands out most for me is how absurd the game is, baking 12 quintillion cookies a second from grandmas, farms that grow cookie plants from cookie seeds, alchemy labs that turns gold into cookies, and even more insane things. The game is the perfect culmination of what I love from idle games that don't take themselves too seriously. I say all this as I have my game up on my phone as I write this script.